Towards the beginning of the Switch's launch, fans and critics alike have been singing songs of praise for Nintendo. However, less than 2 years later, things are slowly starting to change. At least from my perspective. Nintendo has been doing some sleazy stuff lately, and while some people have been slowly wising up to this, many other people still think it's within their best interest to defend Nintendo until the bitter end. Allow me to tell you this piece of shocking news. Nintendo isn't your friend. Nintendo is a billion-dollar company. Just because Reggie is such a meme, lol, doesn't mean that they care about you. You should not be blindly following them as if they were some messiah in a cult. Now don't get me wrong, I absolutely love me some Nintendo. Mario is my favorite gaming franchise of all time after all. But that should give all the more weight to the criticisms I have against Nintendo if I love them so much. You can love something and also see its faults and criticize it. Our brains and emotions are more complex than black and white, believe it or not. So allow me to go over a list I've devised of some sleazy shit Nintendo has done recently / is doing right now, so I can showcase to you how Nintendo doesn't give a flip a dip about you. First up, of some of their sleazy shit, releasing unfinished games. This mainly started with Splatoon, where, upon release, there was barely any content. You had single player, which was fun, but then a very limited amount of maps and modes to play online. Which, the main focus of the game, is online. It took a lot of time, and then eventually people got more maps, modes, guns, etc. It's perfectly fine to add more stuff after launch, but to launch with such bare bones content to the point that initial adopters of the game get bored so quickly because there's so little to do, that's laughable. Especially considering that these early adopters still had to pay the full $60 for which they are getting barely anything for. There's no way they'd do that again, right? Right? Oh wait, they did it several more times. They did the exact same thing with ARMS, except now, they dropped that game months ago, and there's still barely anything to it. It didn't pick up like Splatoon did, so Nintendo dropped it because hey, they didn't have anything to lose from it. Sorry to any people that were dedicated to it. Your loss. It's a shame you had to pay full price for the empty promise of more eventual content that was barely satiated. And then they did the exact same thing again with Splatoon 2. As if we didn't learn our lesson with the first game. Except now, we get a soulless clone of the first game's single player. While I enjoyed the first game's single player, I personally could barely even stomach going through the levels in the second game. So for me, the game had even less content than the first. Until more and more updates came, and then the eventual Octo expansion. Finally, an interesting and good single player that adds new ideas, lore, and has a more unique structure. Sure wish they had put that effort into the main game rather than wasting development time half-assing the initial single player, and then making me pay $20 for the good single player that's actually worth my time. But hey, I'm gonna fork up all the money I have to actually make a game good, right? Moving on from newer IPs, we can see this trend also affecting older IPs with Mario Tennis Aces. You have the Mario Tennis game with the very best gameplay of the entire series, but then give it no special modes, limit the amount of maps, make a boring single player, and lock characters until you feel like releasing them. Kirby Star Allies does something similar, where they release the game and then give you the promise that in a few months you'll be able to play as a handful of more characters. In theory, as Nintendo sees it, this will give the game more lasting appeal since in a few more months, people will still be talking about the game and playing it still to check out the new characters. In reality, however, what we get is a game with content that's finished but we can't access until Nintendo feels like we deserve to play with it. This doesn't make me want to play the game again. Once these additional characters do come, who cares? I mean, I've already beat the game, why are you gonna go back just to play as Dark Meta Knight? Playing as Dark Meta Knight would have been really cool if I could have done that when the game first came out, but I don't care now. So now I guess I'll just be lost in whatever that's like. But maybe I would have been more willing to go back to Kirby Star Allies if it wasn't the weakest of the last 4 mainline Kirby games. That's also a thought. Also, I don't understand the reality in which Nintendo thinks that people will be excited to play Mario Tennis Aces again just because they added Birdo as a playable character. This locking of content away needs to stop. This burdens first adopters of the games. They'll be paying and playing first, and yet will get the least amount of value for their time and money. This trend absolutely needs to stop dead, and soon, because it is not having the effect that Nintendo hopes it has on people, and it's only an inconvenience. Really, it's only better for the consumer to wait from buying the hit new Nintendo game to see if they'll actually update it with more content, and then think about picking the game up. But by then they can probably just get it pre-owned for cheaper, which Nintendo does not want. So how about you make your games worth getting day one, rather than, Nintendo, you're so stupid. So it's a loss for us since we won't be caring about the new Nintendo game like we would want to, and it's a loss for Nintendo because they don't get the one thing that they want from us, our money. Also a side tangent. I will never forget Mario Tennis Ultra Smash on the Wii U. It was the most underwhelming, underachieving, unfinished Mario spin-off that I've ever seen. But by the time that it came out, the Wii U was a sinking ship and development had to move to the Switch. So they just released what little they had and scavenged the money that they could from the suckers that would buy into it just because it had Mario on the cover. Thankfully, I've never paid for the game, but my condolences go out to those who've actually had to pay for it. Especially full price, you poor bastards. And then we move on to the latest of this little debacle, Super Mario Party. Oh my god, Mario Party is good again! Says all the reviews ever. I mean, it's not great, but it's better than the previous 5 other entries in the series, so you can't complain, right? The problem that many people are bringing up about Super Mario Party is the lack of game boards. There are 4 to be exact. 4 small game boards. Many other people are defending this, of course they are. Maybe they'll add more game boards later! Come on guys, they'll add more later. Oh, okay, yeah. Good. Maybe they'll make it good later on, after you spent your money on the game already. Cool. Good, yeah, except Nintendo has given no indication that they'll be updating Super Mario Party. My god, it almost feels like Nintendo is just trying to condition us all into getting used to these half-assed games at this point. And by the time that people realize that Nintendo won't be adding more game boards to Super Mario Party, they would have moved on to the next big Nintendo game and will have stopped caring about Super Mario Party. It's an ingenious plan that Nintendo has going on right here. And I hate it. Something that I'm surprised that I haven't heard a single other person talk about is how they marketed Super Mario Odyssey, their big heavy hitter of holiday 2017. A game that followed Mario on a journey through various strange kingdoms where part of the joy and interest of the game was seeing what weird, unique things would pop up next. How did they show off a game meant to be full of surprises? By showing off most of the entire game! Mario Odyssey was a good game, but not a great Mario game. I came off of Odyssey a bit underwhelmed, and a large part of that was because I kept waiting to see things that I haven't already seen from what Nintendo had already shown off. Towards the end of the game, I kept thinking, surely there must be at least a couple more kingdoms that they didn't show off, right? Right? Nope. They showed off 9 out of the 14 kingdoms that you see before you beat the game. And 2 of those ones that they did not show off were exceedingly small areas where you just fought a boss and then immediately moved on from. So they don't really count for much of anything. They could have easily showed off a fraction of what they did and play up the mystery of what other worlds Mario would be able to venture to. Rather than showing us outright where our ventures would take us, they could have played with our imaginations a bit, you know? Like how they played with the idea of, ooh, what happens when you get 1,000,000 coins? And New Super Mario Bros. 2. Except if they did that with Mario Odyssey, there actually would have been some sort of payoff. Rather than what happened with the 1,000,000 coins in New Super Mario Bros. 2. Fuck that game, by the way. Fuck that game. People may think that it's strange that I'm focusing on this bit so much, but it really goes to show that Nintendo prioritized marketing their game and showing off as much as possible without keeping the player experience and the magic of surprise in mind. Well, DoujinShinji, why didn't you just not watch all of the trailers that they showed the game off with, huh? Oh, yeah, right. Because I knew the whole time that they were showing off as much as it did. Yeah, thanks. Allow me to use my future sight next time. I'll get on that. Before Nintendo Switch Online launched, we all knew it was a bad idea. We all knew it was disgusting of Nintendo to do. None of us wanted this quote-unquote service. And yet, what happened the day that Nintendo Online came out? You all bought it. To see how the online was, or to play NES games for the 15th time, or because you couldn't go without your Mario Kart or Splatoon 2, you bought it. And what a great service it is. Even the NES games slow down and disconnect online. Nintendo delayed their service for an entire year to try to tidy things up, and yet we still get this unfinished garbage. Here's a cool analogy for Nintendo Switch Online. You live on one side of a bush, and your friend lives on the other side. In between both of your properties is a gate, and you occasionally like to play with your friend by passing through the gate. This goes on for years until one day, for no good reason, the government steps in and says that you need to pay for the ability to walk through that gate to see your friend. Wait, what? Why? This is my property. I pay for it. I'm not getting anything out of this. Why would I pay just to be able to see my friend? Well, there is no real reason, other than now you just have to. That's exactly what Nintendo is doing since their online is peer-to-peer. With peer-to-peer, there is no dedicated servers at Nintendo HQ. You are paying Nintendo in order to use your internet to connect to other people's internet. Why would anything this is something that's okay to defend is beyond me. It's only $20 a year! Yeah! And that's millions and millions of dollars Nintendo gets annually for doing nothing. Nothing has changed. Nothing is better. All you get now is 30-year-old games that you'll barely play anyway, and you can hardly play those games online. Oh, but Nintendo released Zelda, the official save state edition, where you can start with Super Baby Easy Mode. Oh, that's worth $20. Now, I'm not saying under any circumstances you should not pay for Nintendo Online, and if you do, you're a bad person, but personally, I just can't, in good conscience, give money to Nintendo for something that they are clearly not caring about and putting effort in. Those NES games that you're super excited about? Literally just a quick lazy port of the NES Mini emulator. We know this because it took less than a day for it to get hacked. Also, to all those YouTubers who bought Nintendo Online just to rant about how bad it was, yeah, thanks, you really showed them, and you're doing a stand-up job. Where would we be without you? Alright, you don't care about any of this, you just wanted to do this for views. Cool, thanks. Wii U ports! I'm actually perfectly okay and sometimes excited about getting a bunch of Wii U ports or games from other consoles and generations. However, you can't possibly look me square in the eye and say that it's fair or right that Nintendo sold Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze on the Wii U for $50 on launch, and then turned around 4 years later and sold the exact same game for $60. You cannot look me in the eye and without a hint of irony say that New Super Mario Bros. U is worth $60 in 2018, the same it costed in 2012. Side tangent! It was always a shame that New Super Luigi U had the exact same overworld map as New Super Mario Bros. U. Like, the exact same. Do you remember in Super Mario World on the SNES when after you beat the special world, the overworld screen would change colors along with some of the enemy sprites? It was a small thing, but it was cool to see, and surprisingly it changed the feeling of going through the overworld. Imagine if they did something similar with the overworld in New Super Luigi U, where it may have had the exact same layout, but would have had a different palette. And if they wanted to go the extra mile, or rather extra yard, they could have changed up a few of the enemy models to make them weirdly different, similarly to what happened in Mario World. Bullet Bill is now some weird bird thing, Piranha Plant's now of pumpkin heads. I don't understand, but I like it. Which, all of that would have not only been really cool, but also really fitting, because the overworld of these two games were heavily influenced by the overworld of Super Mario World. So it's a shame to imagine what could have been if only a little more effort and creativity was put into it. Okay, thank you, tangent over. Alright, now moving on to some app game shenanigans. Back in April of 2018, randomized loot boxes were added to Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. They added a bundle to Pocket Camp worth $80! They are enabling people to spend $80 on virtual furniture for some stupid app game on their phone. Well, they don't have to spend real money. Nintendo isn't forcing them. Well, yeah, you're right. They're not forcing them. But it doesn't make it right for Nintendo to just throw in the option to spend that sort of cash with just a simple screen press. Moving on to Fire Emblem Heroes, my favorite. I love this game. No, I don't. They have a bundle where you can spend $75 to get 140 in-game orbs. You can use these orbs to try to summon different characters because this is a gacha game, and also summons cost up towards 5 orbs per character summon. I don't really think that's worth $75 personally. However, you can easily spend these $75 or even more and then not get the character you were hoping to summon, or possibly you might not even get any good character at all. That's worth way more than the price of an actual full retailed price Fire Emblem game. Well, that's just how gacha games work. You pay for the chance to... Yes, I get it. You're conditioned to accept companies constantly siphoning money out of you with little worth of what you're actually paying for. My point is... it's scummy. Actually, continuing this scummy Fire Emblem trend, what the fuck? I repeat, what the fuck are they doing with the prices of Fire Emblem games? Fire Emblem Awakening, full game, $40 retail. Okay, that's pretty typical and reasonable for a 3DS game. What's the big deal? Oh my god, the DLC is $75. Fire Emblem Fates, full game, $80 retail with an extra $20 digital. Or if you want to be cheaper, $40 retail with an extra $40 digital. Don't forget the DLC, $25.98. Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia. Full game, $40. DLC, $44.99. What the fuck? How is this acceptable? How is this something that was allowed to happen? Why haven't I seen swarms of Fire Emblem fans ranting about how ridiculous it is for them to charge more than how much the game costed to begin with for DLC? Oh, that's right, because they're too distracted in getting upset by Fire Emblem Heroes from what character won the latest gauntlet, or what new characters were added and that there are too many Fates representations. But still, people should be upset by this, especially when the content that you get from the DLC does not surpass the amount of content from the main game. This is absolutely the worst Nintendo has ever done with paid DLC, and it is outright sickening. If Fire Emblem Three Houses has DLC that's anything like this, I hope people finally give it attention. Also, here's hoping that Fire Emblem Three Houses will actually be good, because I'm not entirely confident in that at the moment. Here's another small thing, but it's worth mentioning, and that is you get a fraction of the amount of Nintendo Gold coins when purchasing physical games versus digital games. Alright, just so we're on the same page here. Gold coins are what you get when you buy games and redeem them through your Nintendo account. You can then redeem these gold coins when buying things through the eShop, Nintendo's digital marketplace for games. So what I mean is, when you go out and buy a physical release of your overly hyped, unfinished game, and then redeem your purchase through my Nintendo account, you get 60 gold coins, which is then redeemable for 60 cents on the eShop. You take that, and then we can compare it to if you buy your half-assed game digitally through Nintendo, you get 300 gold coins, which is worth $3 whole on the eShop. I'm noticing quite the difference here. The obvious reason of this is, of course, money! Nintendo sees way higher profit margins from digital purchases rather than physical. And through digital, they don't have to worry about you just buying the game pre-owned, which obviously Nintendo doesn't see a single penny from pre-owned sales. This is rather shitty for collectors who like physical media, but also for people who are skeptical and worry about a digital-only frontier of games, which, as the years go on, we seem to be getting only closer and closer to having our games only digitally owned, which people have a right to be skeptical about, because with these digital purchases, you don't own these games. It's almost like you're borrowing a license to have it. Now, this license may be for quite some time to come, but there will be a time when servers will have to shut down and you'll no longer have access to all these games you spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on. In the year 2060, when you're still living out of the basement of your now rotting parents' corpse's house, who knows if you'll still be able to play these games. Or sometimes a game can be taken off the digital marketplace for good because fuck you. Remember the Silent Hills demo PT? Thanks to PT being taken off the digital store, now only PS4s that already have it downloaded can play it, making them more of a collector's item. How's that for game preservation, huh? So when you compare that to physical games, there's no need to worry. You own that game. And there's a lot more to get into with the whole physical versus digital releases, but I just wanted to get across how Nintendo is more than obviously trying to get you to come over to digital purchases. which just feels a bit sleazy. And do I really need to go over how strict and ridiculous Nintendo is with people uploading YouTube videos that include their games? Because I feel like we've all heard about it by now. Several times over, more than likely. Still sucks though. Now you sober-minded folk out there that are still with me, you may be thinking, well yeah, most of what you've been saying has been making sense and seems pretty obvious. And yes, you're right. Thank you. But sadly, people just don't seem to get it. Nintendo has always been a company first, and they always will be. No amount of memes will change this. And that's not something I'll blame them for. However, I will still call out their disgusting and manipulative practices whenever they arise. Because this is how it works. It's just utterly ridiculous to see people who turn a blind eye to all this type of stuff and or defends Nintendo to their very death. Nintendo doesn't need your help to protect it. Hell, they don't need you at all, really. If you died right now, it's not like Nintendo would know. But regardless, as time goes on, I feel like more people will come around to see things for how sleazy they are. I at least hope that more people will start getting tired of all these tactics. If you are tired of all this, like I am, honestly the only thing you can do is try to talk to other people. It's not like trying to talk to Nintendo on Twitter will help. But even talking to people can be hard, or nigh impossible if fanboys don't listen to reason. When that's the case, literally the only thing you can do, and this is the most important takeaway from all of this, is to vote. Vote with your money. It's what everyone says in this situation, but it's completely true. If you don't like what a game is doing, don't buy it. If you don't like what a DLC or app game is doing, don't pay for it. Paying for it, whether you like it or not, is still giving Nintendo what they want, your money. They don't care if you're giving it to them ironically, or for some ranty YouTube video, or if you're begrudgingly paying for it. They don't care. If you really must play that new game from Nintendo, but a part of you is still nagging at yourself to not give them money for it, buy it pre-owned. Go out of your way to see to it that Nintendo doesn't see any of your money if that is the case. I hope I'm wrong about the future of Nintendo. I hope the new president fixes things up, because things like Nintendo Online, I completely blame Kimishima for. I hope that they fix the online, that we get a proper successor to Virtual Console, that we stop getting mediocre and unfinished games. I hope that in the next 10 years, Nintendo will still be worth my time, money, and admiration. So I guess that whole tirade of a video of mine was just a long way of saying, give us Mother 3!